Hello, I'm Bookface, and welcome to another speed drawing, this one based off of Nun Massacre. And boy, I've got a lot to say on this one, so I'm gonna have to be quick. So, for context, I have played Nun Massacre before, didn't win, but that's more just because it's a difficult game. Uh, and I have also read the book, which actually inspired me to do this. You see, Puppet Combo is something else. Their horror games are just so good. Uh, I know this from watching Corey Kenshin play Puppet Combo all the time, and yeah, real spooky. But when I read the book and actually understood the story of Nun Massacre, I was like, oh yeah, I need to draw something off of that. So basically, my idea is take the nun, but instead of the nun just being a chaotic killer, turn into this full demonic creature. And that's what I did. This video might have some spoilers for the book. Yeah, it will, because I'm gonna go. I have to explain some of the details, because yeah, that's where most of the stuff comes from. So naturally, it starts out with the nun thing. Okay, so this is the first detail that really goes to the lore. Again, if you haven't read the book and you want to, now's time to leave. So near the end of the book, it's revealed that the nun, as well as Miss McDonnell, who you play in the game, and Janie, the daughter of the person in the game, are actually all the same person, and that it's some sort of psychosis thing. Because of that, I made the nun have these three faces fused together. I have the really large extended mouth because it often compared it to a banshee, and I just really liked that. Also, if you're wondering why I did the legs like this, I don't know either. I just wanted to be like, spooky leg. Do the spooky leg dance. This part was a given, that she's gonna have these butcher knives, or are these just kitchen knives? I don't really know. I had them as the like claws. It was a little weird because I don't know why, but for some reason I always imagine the claws like curving downwards, where these ones curve upward technically, which just feels odd. But I mean, honestly, it makes more sense like this because actually I don't know why, but I don't know. This just feels right in a weird way. There's a lot of I don't know why I did this, but I think this turned out to be one of my better pieces. Also, if you're wondering why the whole like one hand is significantly smaller than the other, it's my attempt at like foreshortening, which I've been trying to do more of in my drawings because adds it, it adds depth to them literally and figuratively. So yeah, that her left, our right, is more forward than the other. So here's where I'm at in the mouth, because the nun screams when she chases you, which is just so like one thing. Like I liked the book, I liked the description the book gave, but there's no way they could accurately portray the horror of the nun chasing you and just screaming. Also, if you're wondering what those spastic little lines were, I was having issues with my computer freezing up, which makes it so it doesn't detect when I stop clicking. So if I just want to do a dot, it'll just keep going. Shading on the face was pretty light, but honestly, I kind of figured I wouldn't be able to have a ton of little detail. There, of course, I put in the little white collar. I don't know what that is. I was about to say I don't know what that is. I'm not a nun, and I mean I'm not, as far as you know. I'm not a nun. Uh, but yeah, I honestly didn't really want to add that completely because, like, while I do like Nun Massacre and I want to make something very Nun Massacre esque, and I like the idea of the evil nun, like a bunch of this I like. I still like to keep my creatures purely creatures. When you start adding artificial, like human details, it gets a little. It becomes something very different. But, I had to make this the nun since it's so integral. And here are all these big lines, which, oh boy, that was a lot. So, another thing from both the game and the book, The nun has a pit full of razor wire or barbed wire. I think it's razor wire. I chose to I chose to say razor wire in this. So my idea is razor wire going in and out her body, and it's I don't know what purpose it serves. I guess she could spiky hug you to death, which like I would not want that. But basically, what the effect was is I had to go around, correct the size of all these little lines, shade them to where they actually have like a depth to them and look like cables instead of just flat lines on the thing. And then I had to go back and add the razors, which, man, it took me a long time. I think this is like the the longest, like, uh, not maybe not the longest drawing, although honestly it might be. So basically, what I do when I get a drawing is I'll usually have it set to 1,000% speed, which is like 10 times faster. Had to do the math there for a second. This one, even after making it 10 times faster, was still 24 minutes. So I had to take it down another notch and made it 20 times faster. So I definitely put a lot of work into this one because I really liked the idea. It's a spooky one, and I'm very glad about that. That's one thing I am really happy with this about. Oh yeah, another long thing is that I tried to shade the razors individually to really go all out, but I soon figure out I don't have time for that or the motivation. So I just start doing it simpler. And honestly, I think it works better. But yeah, what was I saying? I was about to say something. Uh, oh yeah, one thing that I like about this drawing that I haven't had with a lot of my drawings in recent time, just because I don't know, it hasn't exactly been my priority to it, is I feel like this one really gets an emotion, which sounds weird, but in my earliest drawings of eldritch horrors and monstrosities and all sorts of abominations, the energy I wanted was one of visceral disgust. In and in some of my early drawings, I feel like I nailed that. Like just looking at it makes you uncomfortable. And I think this one kind of manages it. It's still not a bit because I think just maybe it's just the context of knowing like it's a nun and it's from a video game makes it slightly less scary for me. Like the gimmicks makes me not take it quite as seriously, but I still think it gets an emotion out of me. Maybe it's just 'cause it took me so many hours to do it. Oh yeah, also the little thing of the razor wire going in through the eyes and presumably going throughout the head is just ugh. Like I'm so glad I did it, but also ugh. And I had a long, er, I had a long time. I had a hard time figuring out like how to distribute all the details because there's a lot of details in Nun Massacre. A lot of things I wanted. I knew the razor wire had to be a part of it. I knew knives obviously had to be a part of it. But there were some other things, like little bits of symbolism, of tools, of different things. Like I considered adding like big pikes in there because they're these spikes that have mannequin organs and limbs and such on them. But I ended up not doing that because it already felt a little cluttered. But there's a lot of things I could have done with this, and whether I should have done more or not. Nah. There are some drawings. Interesting fact: there's a drawing that was gonna go before this one, but I look back at it, I'm like, it didn't change enough, so it just looks like a larger version of what I had as its basis. So I held off on posting that one until I can make it a little more unique. But this one I think is very unique. I think it creates a very new image, even though it still brings Nun Massacre to mind. It's still different. The blood, the gallons and gallons of blood. You knew it had to happen. It's honestly just so funny, weirdly enough, putting the blood into these things, because, like, on the one hand, it seems like so much and also so little. Like, on the one hand, it really brings to the forefront that this is like gore and stuff. But on the other hand, it's just splotches of red. And like, it's just another color. It's just another thing. So basically, I go throughout the whole drawing, like selecting different sections and splattering on varying amounts of blood depending on certain areas. The feet have a lot because I assume she's walking in blood. Yada yada yada. But I hold on a second. Okay, dog has stopped barking for the time being. But yeah, it probably would have been easier if I just made a full like red version and just cut away what wasn't completely covered in blood. Oh yeah, here's acid because that's a thing in the book. I don't know if that's actually a thing in the game, but maybe I just haven't gotten to that. But anyways, also another thing I wanted to point out is I uh, made the foreshortening a little more dramatic. Like the closer hand is now like twice as big as the further hand. Oh yeah, also I start with the acid being like a green, but then I just glow it out until it's just very very clear, translucent, which I think looks better. Still a little iffy. Here I'm doing fire because fire is a big thing in Nun Massacre in all sorts of different ways. I had to play around with different ways to like make the fire look how I wanted it to. So I tried a bunch of different effects to varying results, which is why you'll see it'll just sort of jump around a bit from here to there. But eventually, I guess that I kind of liked. Uh, then I made the little steamy boys that come off the acid because it's acid. Otherwise, is it even really acid? Uh, yeah. So I did this just because I thought like a little dark around the edges would make it look more like it was like it had the fire behind it, kind of creating like a glare. Like the further back, the darker it is, to where the backhand is barely even visible. And then changing the level of posterization to simplify it a bit. Oop, that was weird. And change the colors, and boom, it's done. And here we have our final product, which I have decided to call the Massacre Nun, because I used all my creativity in drawing it and could not be bothered to think of a cool name. Uh, yeah, it really brings forth emotion in some way. What I think it is just like what I think made it look like more spooky and harsh, along with, of course, the obvious like blood, acid, all the stuff that's very disturbing to look at. I think it's also like the harshness of the colors and like the severity of like the light changes. Like I usually try to make sure everything's still kind of visible no matter how much shading or foreshortening it, but in this one I'm like, who cares? And made I made the backhand almost a complete silhouette because I thought that worked, and I think it did. It made it look, like a little more ominous and menacing. Really made it fit into the background. Uh, the good thing about adding the fire is I didn't actually have to draw a background. I did like a little texturing on the background to make it a thing, but ultimately it's mostly just the nun, which it works. Um, I'm glad I lightened the face to make it the focal point because otherwise it would have been too dark, I think. And I feel like with how dark I made the backhand, I probably should have made the front hand like super bright, but I didn't, which is fine. I think it's also because I didn't really know how to position the hand. Like I wanted to show that all the nails were knives, but I don't know. Is its palm reaching forward? Is it just holding its hand limply forward, or it's a little weird. Posing is still a tricky thing for me, which is why it doesn't really look so much like it's reaching forward as much as it does like just just stretching one shoulder, like rolling it back. But I still think it turned out pretty good and pretty spooky and pretty disturbing. Um, all the best for Puppet Combo. I definitely want to do more of these, like giant demonic creatures based on the Puppet Combo antagonists, because there are some good ones. The games, they're all great. You should watch Corey Kenshin play 'em. That's my tip. Corey Kenshin's a good gamer, and puppet combo are good games, so it's a perfect combo. A puppet combo. uh, I don't know I don't know what that was. Um, but yeah, I think I'm getting better with these, and I think I can draw spookier if I really put my head into it. But it takes time. This took me a long time to finish. But I'm not complaining. Like, honestly, I think it turned out great because of that. And that's all for that. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else that you think I should use for a drawing. And I will see you next time. Bye!